But frankly, Mr. Secretary, your goals don't match the reality of your budget requests. For starters, your budget request walks away from the decades-long federal commitment to the Land and Water Conservation Fund by ending federal land management acquisition and cutting most discretionary grant programs. Given your previous support, you have to know how critical the Land and Water Conservation Fund is for recreation, and whether it be funding projects to acquire in-holdings so we can manage federal lands more efficiently, providing access to landlocked pieces of public land, or even funding parks and other projects at the state and local level.
But your budget would abandon the Land and Water Conservation Fund and Congress's promise, bipartisan promise, to the American people. For more than 50 years, the Land and Water Conservation Fund has been an important funding source for state and local outdoor recreation facilities, city parks, might be part of critical green infrastructure, acquisition of public forests, wildlife refuges, parklands. Vermont, like every single state represented here, has benefited from LWCF investments. We have more to do. We want to protect the scenic vistas along the Appalachian National Scenic Trail, Vermont's Long Trail. We need to create and expand community parks, develop recreation facilities, implement locally supported recreation plans. And I have concerns your department may be delaying the obligation of LWCF funding, giving the administration lack of support, even though Congress, in a bipartisan effort, appropriated the funds. Your first quarter report shows more than $133 million in prior years' unobligated balances in LWCF line item projects. And it troubles me that such delays could harm our ability to safeguard natural areas threatened by development or see them auction off to the highest bidder or special interests.
I want to shift gears and talk about Land and Water Conservation Fund. I'm disappointed to see the significant reduction in proposed funding for LWCF. I'm encouraged by your budget mentioning the need for reauthorizing the program. I'm optimistic this committee and Congress as a whole will maintain our commitment to that program as is one that has robust bipartisan support. My question is, do you agree that LWCF is a good program that benefits Montana?
I've long been a supporter of the LWS program. As a congressman, former congressman, I've seen the benefits of the LWC program. I've been a supporter of a permanent authorization. It's hard to justify taking in more land when we haven't addressed the maintenance problem of our current holdings. And I'm hoping that a bipartisan bill that you're sponsoring on maintaining and getting a system in place where we can maintain our current property would be a big step. And if we're maintaining what we have, then I do agree with expansion of the LWFC program. But also, there's a difference between appropriated and authorized. Over the course of time, authorized, the gap is about $18 billion. So that means $18 billion had been authorized that hasn't been appropriated in that account. And so our current system, I think, this is why we need a permanent authorization.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mr. Secretary.
What has made Teddy Roosevelt an icon is his ability to come into an area that was almost all wild and realize that it wouldn't always be that way unless he did things like set up parks and so that vision is what really I think sets Teddy Roosevelt apart from just about any other president that's served when it comes to our public lands. Which brings me to the Land and Water Conservation Fund, a fund that has been fully funded twice since 1978 when it was first set up at $900 million off of offshore oil. Your budget puts in $8.1 million, and from the questions that Senator Daines had just asked, your statement to him was you didn't want to bring more land into the public lands domain because there's a maintenance problem. Did I mishear you on that, or is that correct? Is that why we're at $8.1 million?
The Conservation Act removes, or the proposed budget removes new acquisition. It does not remove properties that would come into conservation easements, but it does prioritize what we have. You know, up front, as you know, the budget is a proposal, and this is where the two branches come together.
I got you.
And discuss priorities.
Yeah.
And I've always worked with you on land and water conservation.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, Mr. Secretary. The chairwoman talked about Tara Sweeney yesterday. Here's the problem. The problem is that we all come from different parts of the world. Public lands is a Western thing, truly is. And for people to really understand here how important this is, we've got to have an advocate in the administration. That's you. To be able to say, you know what, 8.1, when it should be funded at $900 million, because I know in your heart that's where you think it should be funded. And don't let me put that in your heart unless it really is in your heart. But we've got to have a person that stands up and says, whoa, come on. Now, so is 8.1... Let's just be honest. I mean, what was the justification for that? Are there no projects nationwide? Are there, you know, because the truth is these ecosystems aren't going to be around in 10 or 20 years. Teddy Roosevelt, they were going to be around in 10 or 20 years when he toured the country. But now they're not. And we're seeing lands being sold and checkerboards being taken away off the decade. So I just want to get your opinion because it's really important that the Secretary of Interior understands it. It's not all on us. Some of it is. Good portion's on you.
No, and I agree that it takes working together on it. And I've been an advocate of the Land Water Conservation Fund. I'm also an advocate is we need to address our $11.7 billion backlog in our parks. And then our $1.2 billion or $1 billion in our wildlife bridges. And over the way, parks and even though in the West we think that all the public land is out west, it's really not. We have great public land, battlefields on the East Coast that also need to be maintained. So the priority of this budget is infrastructure repair, backlog,
So that brings
and bring a discussion between the two groups.
That brings me to my next question, and that is that the revenue for rebuilding the national parks is not going to be taxpayer dollars. It's going to come off of all energy projects similar to LWCF. LWCF is funded at a pittance, $8 million when it should be $900 million. Why should we think that this proposal is going to be any different if it's going to be similar to LWCF?
Well, the proposal, which is bipartisan, was also a recommendation from numerous commission studies.
I got you.
But it also expands it. And the idea is this. It is a sound and prudent policy.
It's fine if it's done, and LWCF is a sound and prudent policy too, to take offshore drilling revenues and put $900 million towards this project in 1978 dollars, and they're not near as much now as they were in '78, and we're funding it, I don't know, 1% of what it should be.
And this is why there's two branches of government, and why I'm committed to work with you on it.
Good. Appreciate that. Now.